What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee. I'm Angela Yee, and I have two amazing guests, and I'm so excited that you guys are here. Joy Taylor and Taylor Rooks.
Hi, we're happy to be here. The Taylors. Yes, I'm so happy to be here with you. You know, I'm so happy for you. I love this studio. You're killing it. So thanks for having us.
Well, I'm so glad y'all are here, and I am so happy that you both have a podcast that's coming out on March 6th, and it's going to be every Wednesday. And when I first heard about why you guys are doing it, I was like, yes, thank you, Jesus. Okay. But first, let's talk about the name of the podcast. It's called 2, the number 2, Personal. And the first thing I thought when you guys collaborated was it's going to have the name Taylor in there somewhere, but you guys went through a process to come up with a name. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. You want to go ahead and take it?
It was a process. But, you know, there's a lot of people involved when you're putting these things together. And obviously we are both very opinionated people and we feel very strongly about things, but we communicate really well together. And I would say most of this process, all this process really has been ego-free. Yeah. So we really just wanted to find something that we both agreed on that matched what we were doing in the show, that told the story of the show. So, you know, usually it ends up being called, like, they're going to be like, oh, it's Joy and Taylor's podcast. Yeah. Because, like, it's Angela's podcast. Like, that's what they end up calling it. Right. But you want to have something for people that don't know you that sort of represents the vibe of the show. So it was a very long process.
Yes.
But we landed somewhere that we really love.
What were some names that y'all went through?
Oh my goodness. It's just so many Taylor names.
Sometimes you think it's so corny when you look back, like, I'm glad I didn't call it that.
Yeah. But I also think, too, going off that we would have conversations about, like, you know, we are known as Taylor Rooks and Joy Taylor, like, in this sports space. So we're entering into, like, a really new, exciting, and different space. So people are going to know us there as something else. So know us as the women that we are as opposed to, like, the sports personalities. And so I think it was important for us to have a name that was also indicative of, like, this phase and this evolution of what we do. So our names are still in it, but just at the back.
Well, and since it is too personal, right, what is that transition going to be like for you guys? Because it is really, whenever we see both of you, it's you guys, you know, talking about other people in sports. And so, like you said in the trailer that we had a chance to see, a lot of times we see these men. We see Shannon Sharpe has really ventured off and killed it with Club Shay Shay. But you see a lot of other athletes, former athletes, having podcasts where they're able to discuss whatever they want, talk about things. Stephen A. Smith, you know, has his too. I mean, so many different people right now. All the smoke. You know, everybody's kind of doing this, but we don't see a lot of women in this space. So it also feels like both of you kind of keep your personal lives very personal. And so this is different, too. So what's going to be the balance for you guys? Because now people are going to know more about you personally.
Yeah. I mean, there obviously will be a balance, but I think one of the things that makes this really fun is that we are also getting rid of that balance. Like we are deciding that we want to show people who we are. We want to talk about things and be very unfiltered. And I think for me, that's probably a bit more of a difference than what Joy has done, because Joy has done radio. She has talked about these things. Me, I have made a living off of asking other people personal questions. But I like that now it's just I want to show everything about myself. So while there is a balance, I also think it's important to say that I have decided to do this because I want to bear who I am to other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a challenge because you're right. We are two very private people.
Very. Emphasis on very.
Like we can Google some things and see, but we don't know.
And half of that ain't ever true.
Streets, we have a joke. The streets they've never got a dub on me. Like
literally, I'm very clear. They have never caught me doing nothing that they say.
Whatever you've heard from the streets, I can promise you it is wrong. It is wrong. So, and that's intentional, right? Like we don't want, coming from journalistic backgrounds, we don't want the story to be us. So even though I'm in the opinion space, I don't want the story to be what my opinion is. I'm just sharing it. We're having conversations. So it was a conversation that we had when we first had the idea to do it, that, look, this is going to be a little uncomfortable. This is going to be a challenge because when I started my career, I was much more open. As she mentioned, I did radio in Miami for years, and I would talk about my personal life. I would talk about stories and be, very free with it. And I think the further I've gotten into the business, the less I've talked about myself for different reasons. But it will be a challenge for both of us. And it definitely is something we talked about.
Right.
For sure.
Because I think for women in sports, I always feel like women in sports have it even harder than women in music and hip hop. We have it tough. But I feel like when it comes to sports, because that is this is a male-dominated space, but that is really a male-dominated space. And I also feel like sports fans are just it can be very misogynistic just from things that I've seen people write, and they feel like it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually want to talk about what you had said before that, which is that you see a lot of men in sports in this space, but you haven't always seen women in sports branch out of talking about sports. And I think it's important to talk about that point because in some ways that's sort of by design. Like women haven't felt like they could do that because of the space that we're in. Men do tend to be like very finicky about us, very judgmental. They definitely over-sexualize or hyper-sexualize us. And with Joy specifically, I'm going to brag on her for a minute because I don't think people talk about this enough. Joy is an opinionist in sport. There are not very many women that are opinionists. Like I'm an interviewer, so I'm doing something that sometimes you see other women doing more. But she has a job where she is talking about what she thinks when it comes to the sport. And so even the sort of criticisms that she will get of her opinion is different than the things that I get because people are attacking what she had to say about their favorite team or their favorite player. And so as a woman, when that's already what it's like when you're a woman in sports, to then decide, okay, well, now I'm going to make myself open to you to talk about my life too. A lot of women don't want to make that decision.
Right.
Men have made that decision because it's easier for them to enter into that because of how they're already accepted in sport. But now we're kind of doing it on both sides of the coin. But we're excited about it.
Yeah, and I would add to that the comfortability of being yourself for women. You're always on. You know this. You don't have the space to get anything wrong. So imagine living in that space, constantly having to get every statistic right, every name right, every trade right, every team.
Which is it's impossible, by the way, to always be right. It's impossible.
It is impossible.
When you do this all the time, there's going to be something that somebody gives you something that's wrong or you repeat something. It's impossible to get it right every single time.
That's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
It is. But the difference is when you're a woman, it's that you don't know anything when you get it wrong, as opposed to like you read a statistic wrong or something like that. You just don't get the same level of grace. So to add in a personal space is very daunting for women. Also, I don't know, I would totally agree. I say all the time, thank God I can't sing because the music industry is crazy.
I think that it is too.
I think it's crazy. I mean, we have like HR.
Yeah, there's checks and balances in sports.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard here too. So I don't know. I guess from the outside looking in, for me, when I watch what you guys do, I'm always like, "Ooh, that is so tough." Just to see how people react, or if you do an interview or whatever, people are always assuming something is going on.
100%, and that is for sure one of the worst parts. But it's just because for both hip hop and I think sports, we're in these spaces that some men think that they own. And now you come in here and you're doing an amazing job and you have kind of staked your claim here. Like, I'm here, I do it well. And people start to say, I don't know, this space doesn't belong to her. But the more and more you do it, you're like, no one owns what we're doing. You come in and you step in because you're good at it, because you are capable, because you have talent. And I think for some men, more of like the sports fans, they are not able to understand both of those things.
And you both come from families with professional athletes in your family. So you grew up in this. And I think it's important for people to understand that too. Like, you're not, and which is fine either way, but it's something that you really like grew up in that space and in that world, you know?
Yeah, and I think that gives you a more personal.
a little too personal.
a little too personal. No, I mean, that's definitely shaped how I look at sports, how I look at the entertainment business, how I look at some of the things that we talk about very flippantly. A lot of times in music or in sports, we talk about the stars as almost these transactional pieces, and they don't really have humanity to them. Like someone is traded. Okay, they've been traded to another team, or they're no longer on this team. They're on this team now, so we'll move on. But this person has to uproot their family. They're probably leaving before their wife and children. They're going to go stay in an apartment. The wife has to pack everything up, change schools for the kids. The kids have to leave all of their friends. They're going here. And I know it's a sob story and they get paid millions of dollars, but all of these things affect you on a personal level. Getting cut, what is that emotion like? How do you go to another team and overcome that and learn a new system? All of those things, when you have that proximity to you in shaping how you view the world and how you view sports definitely gives you a different perspective. So
yeah, I also think too, just going off that, it's two things that I think are advantageous growing up in sports families, just to be a sports journalist and to enter in the space we're doing is, one, with athletes, their perception kind of walks into the room before they do. So you feel like you know this athlete before you've even had a conversation with them, because you've seen clips, you've seen them play the sport, things like that. And I think that we can recognize that too and empathize with that as well, because people have ideas about us based on the work that they've seen about us without ever speaking to us.
Right.
But we know what that's like. And we also bring that sort of care into the work that we do. And we'll also bring that sort of care into this show. I think that's one thing that's really important. But the second part about growing up in a family of athletes is that I also think we understand men in a way that is very unique. I think that it has helped us in sports, but it's also helped us navigate life. And I use understand very loosely, because who really understands men? They tend to be ridiculous at times. But we get the things that they go through and also maybe understand how they think about the world. And I think that it's important to be able to have a full scope of all people, especially when you're getting into a show like this where you are going to be talking about all different types of things.
And Joy, you're on a show where it feels like the guys give you the space they know you're opinionated already, and they like that. It feels like it. I don't know, because it's just me, like I said, from the outside looking in. And so how nice is it, though, because I can understand this, to be able to leave the guys and do something with another woman.
Shout out to the guys.
Yes, we love the guys.
Yeah, it's a different feeling, though.
It is. Yes, I'm often the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
So one of the only women in the room. So yeah, it's and I'm used to that. I have brothers, as Taylor said. We're around men a lot. I love men. This is not an anti-men thing.
Yeah.
But I am also very much a girly girl, and I love my sisters. I love my girlfriends. I love being around women, talking to women. I have many, many female friends. I enjoy the company of women. Being someone who is in male-dominated spaces, it's very nice to talk to the girlies.
Yeah, it's no shade to the men. Sometimes it's
no
like,
shade. We love the men.
I know it. Hear a man's voice for an hour, at least.
And they know it. They know it. They give me a hard time about it too, because they know, like, I'm in a locker room. I don't know if you saw the clips from our show this week, but they're now racing. They're competing. They're gonna race. I'm like, I'm not racing.
You're not doing push-ups.
I'm not doing push-ups. Yeah. I will count the push-ups and record you. Nobody tear a hamstring. No, I love being in that environment, because sports is something that we're both extremely passionate about. And for me, giving my opinion about sports is something that I worked my entire career to be able to do. Yeah. They do give me the space to do that. We have a great respect on our show where, we treat each other with the balance and, dignity that where we're coming from is different places, but we all have an opinion about something that we're passionate about, which is sports. So it's a great space for me, and I love being able to do that every day. But it was also important for me, as somebody who is a woman, proud of being a woman, lean into my femininity, have amazing friends that are women, am passionate about bringing more women into the space and telling stories from a female perspective with strength and confidence. That doesn't mean that we're tearing down men. It's just, this is our experience.
I need a moment sometimes.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be justified or explained. Like, this is just what we're saying. And that's fine.
Honestly, what I love about, like, I have my podcast, it's all women. I love when we have guys come on there and they're not used to being the only man in the room. And that was really kind of why I started it, because I felt like it was always the opposite, right? When it came to music, a lot of times the interviewers were always men, and then a woman comes in, she's the only woman. So I wanted to do the reverse. And so it kind of throws people off a little bit, and they give a different type of interview when that happens. And Joy, I know you've said you're the research person, right? You're not going to do anything without researching everything. So I want to talk about that, because Taylor, you're like, some of these podcasts and shows are dangerous. There's a lot of information and rhetoric being put out there that's not true. That's also kind of like these huge blanket statements that sometimes I always see people in the comments like, can we make microphones $1 million so that everybody cannot do this? So talk to us about some of the things you'll be discussing on Too Personal.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we'll really be discussing, like, everything. But I think what's really important to us is to contextualize the things that are happening socially and culturally with our experiences. What has happened in our lives, what's happening right now that influences how we view what everyone else is talking about. So it will never be like a celebrity gossip show or us just getting hot takes off. It's really about how we view the world is influencing our opinions on what's happening in the world. So it's been really cool to just even hear just some of the things that you have gone through in your life and why it makes you view certain things a certain way. And then on top of that, it's just been really nice and in a lot of ways therapeutic for me to do this show. And I mean, of course, right now we only have up some of our teasers and the pre-content.
It feels juicy already. I'm not going to lie. I got questions.
But talking about myself out loud in ways that I never have is what has made this show really nice. And then with women, just hearing the comments of like, you know, I watch your stuff, but I have never heard you talk about yourself. And like what you're saying, I relate to, or I didn't know that you felt that way. And while it has been cool to be in this space and, you know, sort of, I think people view people on TV as very aspirational, but I think that we are actually, above all else, incredibly relatable. Like Joy and I are just two really good friends that love and care about each other. And that is something that all women know, and all women know what it is like to have been hurt before or felt betrayed or felt overjoyed. Like we all have these same sort of singular experiences that we don't always talk about out loud. So when I think about the topics of the show, it really is just saying the quiet things out loud. There's a lot of things that we care about online that have nothing directly to do with us, but we care about it because we've experienced the same thing that the person we're all talking about cares, talking about in that moment. So it's just been cool to dive in from a different perspective to these sort of things.
Yeah, and I saw you got very emotional on the clip too, talking about a conversation with your mother. Yeah. And you're right about that. And I don't know if this helps in work. I feel like it does, especially in this day and age, being able to kind of shut your emotions off. And I feel like it's benefited me, but I feel like there's a reason for that.
Yeah, totally.
And it's kind of hard. It is hard for me to have conversations with my parents about things. We didn't grow up like that. For me to like sit down and be like, okay, guys, why did this happen? Or, you know, this is what I experienced growing up. And so now I'm able to, I think the only way I can cope in certain situations is to not feel emotional about things and to just, you know, ignore it and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and there was so many people that just like reached out to me after that clip saying that they feel that exact same way. And I don't know why I have never said that I feel that way, because I have thought about it so much, especially even just beginning therapy. But there has been a lot of power in knowing that I'm not alone and not fully understanding emotions. And really the journey of always checking in with myself has been really nice. And I'm trying to do that more and just sit and say, how do I feel about this thing that just happened to me? Because I think in our business, you almost sometimes have to be on autopilot. You don't have time to think about, am I sad? Am I mad? Did this person just hurt me? Because you feel like if you wallow in that emotion, you're not going to be able to move forward. But as I've gotten older, it's like the moving forward is actually more of a moving through. So like I'm trying to move through how I feel to get to what the other side of that thing is. But it's hard because, to your point, sometimes you think that that's how you have to be.
Because you also sometimes, I feel like, don't want to show weakness because you feel like you don't want people to see what your weakness is, because some people feed off of that.
A lot of people feed off of that.
Yeah.
And that is a thing I think too that is both exciting about doing this show, but also something you think about is we have decided to give a lot of ourselves to people. And we love that. We think that's what's going to make it really special. But that's also like a big decision that we have entered into. But I think it's important to really connect with women in that way. And it's been really nice to see that women have been looking for something that is like what we are putting out.
I want to ask both of you, is it hard to date because you guys are around men all the time? Does that make somebody feel insecure in your experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am spoken for. I am very loved and in love, but luckily he has literally no insecurities.
And you're not going to say his name on the podcast.
I am not.
So anybody who is listening just to hear his name. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and you don't know him, so it doesn't matter even if it's his name. But no, he is truly like the most secure, most supportive, most encouraging grandest man that you will ever meet. And I think that through the relationships I've been in, because I've thought I've been in love many times, I've been in relationships many times, and the big issue in a lot of those things was some level of insecurity. But a lot of times I don't think that people know that they're insecure. Like, they don't know that that is what the actual root issue is. Like, so they say all of these things that are actually symptoms of insecurity. I'm saying that as someone who has probably also been there at points in my life. But I get that being in this business, how it would maybe make the people that you're dating feel, but I feel very lucky that that is not a thing that I have to deal with any longer. I can't wait to hear about
this. And Joy, what about you? Do you find that it makes it harder? Like, people do get insecure.
I would never be with someone that could not handle me being around men.
Sometimes people think they could handle it until they can't.
And then
they gotta go.
They gotta go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, I'm at a point in my life where things are very non-negotiable for me. I went through a very serious stretch of therapy where I knew that the main thing that I was going to focus on healing was my complete inability to enforce boundaries. And now that I have very, very strong boundaries, it's so easy to say no to things because I know that this doesn't serve me. And it's not about hurting someone or not valuing someone. I just truly believe that there are so many chapters of your life, and people come in and out of your life for different reasons. And some people are forever and some people are extremely temporary. And I don't have a sense of ownership over people that I feel like I had when I was younger, when I was a bit more insecure myself. So I truly just do not allow that kind of energy around me. I would never be with a man that's insecure about what I do, about who I am, about how I present myself. It's just, it would never get to that point. So I'm sure there are women who deal with this in the business. And there's definitely been times where I have, but they were extremely toxic situations. So I can't even apply the energy that I was getting in those situations to an actual functioning relationship. So at this point in life, there would never be a man at my side that behaves that way. It's an absolute non-negotiable. It's not even, I wouldn't even entertain. We were talking about this the other day. I can't even think of something I want to argue with a man about. Like, I'm in such
We're
a,
gonna go to dinner.
Yeah, there's nothing to fight about. Like, I'm not fighting about another woman. I'm not fighting about my job. I'm not fighting about your job. I'm not fighting. What? I don't want to fight with anyone about anything. I'm in such a zen, like, healed place that any of that chaotic energy is literally laughable to me. Like, please, you're looking for another woman.
100%.
There's no chance.
Completely agree.
You've been engaged before, right?
I've been married and
engaged.
Yes.
Okay. And then, have you ever been engaged?
I have been engaged. Yes, I have been engaged.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I asked you. Yes, engagement is certainly a thing I've experienced. But I think that what we both feel like is that love and relationships are not rooted in ownership.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes a lot of the like rhetoric that we hear that is more unhealthy or more like toxic is like about that ownership. Like, what role do I have in not necessarily like controlling a person's life, but at least dictating some elements of it? And I think, at least for me, what I have learned is like love feels more like freedom. And it feels like I am letting you be who you are, and I am accepting who you are, and I am letting you move through life in the ways that feel good to you. And that's also what I want love to feel like to me. But we only know that through lots of trial and error.
And it's respect too. I think respect is one of the most important elements you can have in any relationship, no matter what it is: friendship, work, sisters, parents, partners. If you don't respect the other person in every way and everything that they are, even with their flaws, it's going to be very difficult to navigate life. And obviously, Taylor and I are in very unique spaces. I'm not brushing off that we are in rooms with big celebrities and with lots of men, and some men that don't care if you're in a relationship or not in a relationship.
Right.
And it's
most men don't.
Yeah,
sure.
For sure.
Right, exactly.
Totally
they
right.
Don't care if they are either.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, if that was the energy that we always wanted around us, then we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. Mm-hmm. So, we chose this line of work with the full knowledge that it was a male-dominated space. And I think sometimes some parts of this show will probably reveal why we are the way that we are, because I just can't, again, I just can't even imagine being with a man that's like, I don't know,
Yeah, it's like, no. And we also aren't going to be that to them. Like, it's not very much so a two-way street. It's just not the thing. I have gone through the phase of thinking that that's what love is, and I am very happy to be out of that phase.
How did you two become so tight?
You know what? It's so funny because, like, I have been thinking about this, and I met her years and years and years ago in Miami at NABJ. We had, like, spoken a lot online, but we had never, like, met in person. And I just remember we were both at the party, and we didn't leave each other's side that party. And then it has just stayed that way. And that was what, like, 7 years ago, maybe 6 or something.
Yeah,
it was a power couple.
Yeah, you know it.
It was love at first sight.
Yeah,
I think, and Taylor, we talked about this a little bit in our teaser. I think the thing with Taylor and I is we have this, sort of bonds. Like, you know, we joked about our names being in the name of the show and all of that. But we also are both in very unique spaces and have very unique pressures on us. We're in a lot of the same rooms. We deal with a lot of the same people. We deal with a lot of the same scrutiny. In some ways, we deal with complete opposite scrutiny for different reasons. Mm-hmm. For example, Taylor has publicly dated everyone in the business.
Every single person. I've had a lot of boyfriends.
A lot.
Some good ones.
Yeah.
Privately.
Some great ones. That, to be clear, none are true.
None are true. Privately, I have dated everyone in the business. So I get like a completely different reaction to that. Like, it's like rumors. And I'm like, I've never even been in the same room as this person, but go off.
Yeah.
So,
and just because you're in a photo with someone doesn't mean they're your boyfriend.
No.
It's pretty crazy.
I can completely relate.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is really crazy. But because we have so many things that we can relate about, it's very nice to have someone who's in the exact same business, who's dealing with almost the exact same things every single day, that I don't have to explain what's going on. I don't have to explain the characters. I don't need to tell you who this person is in relation to this and the politics of this room as opposed to this. When someone comes up and says something to us and we're both like, that's crazy, you just said that, but okay, cool. Like those kind of nonverbal communication things that we just have with each other. And then also we just really respect each other at a very high level. I think she's one of the best in the business, sports and entertainment, culture, news, whatever, that does what she does. I think she's one of the greatest interviewers that we've seen in the business ever. Yeah. And her ability to show up with such grace and confidence and research and to get people to talk the way that they talk. So people do interviews all the time, especially athletes. They're interviewed almost every night from beat reporters, and they're constantly being interviewed. But to make people feel comfortable enough to express things that they would otherwise never say, and I know how professional she is, like those type of things have just really made it very easy to be close friends outside of the personal relationship that we have, because so much of our lives is our work.
Yeah. And I think, too, like, we just very innately understand each other. Like, to her point, it's really nice to have someone in your life that you're not having to explain or over-explain things to. We just know how the other person feels. We know what the other person is thinking. We know how to navigate this space very uniquely. And that allows us to have conversations that you quite literally can't have with any other person. And I would say it's very necessary to have someone like a Joy in your life. And it's been a joy to have joy. Yeah, it's been a joy to have joy. And it's been so beneficial to me. So I just love her.
We're secret keepers.
Most importantly, we are secret keepers.
We need to bring back secrets.
So important.
We need to bring back secrets.
We need to bring back shame and secrets.
I feel you on that. And Taylor, I remember when you first moved to New York, and we met, and just to see where you are now, I think has been absolutely inspiring and amazing. Every time I see you do an interview that goes viral, I'm like, look at my girl Taylor.
Yeah, I appreciate you. No, and honestly, I mean this. Thank you so much for embracing me when I first moved to New York, because moving to New York was very scary for me. I moved here when I was like 24.
I feel like you're more New York than me now.
Yeah, maybe.
Outside.
Maybe.
I'm in the house all the time. You're at zero bond.
She'd be in the mix. But I mean it. Thank you so much. And I'm so proud of you, like, with this show. I watch all the time. I literally just finished watching the Lala episode. So I just love seeing how you have evolved and thrived and continue to just, push culture forward.
Thank you. And I want to ask you guys, when you, okay, so let me ask you first, Joy. If you're critical of an athlete or somebody and you run into them, have you ever had an instance where they really had like an issue with anything?
No, I honestly haven't.
Okay.
Not that I think that somebody hasn't received what I've said well, but I also try. Well, it comes naturally to me because of the experiences that I've had with my brother and around, other professional athletes, and the fact that I do view these humans as human beings.
Right.
I try to talk about when I am critical of someone in a way that is based in facts, is based in statistics, is based in research, is based in things that if I did run into them, I could say, well, this did happen, and this is the case, and you did lose this game with the football in your hands. These things do exist, and that's where I draw my opinion from. But I also am very conscious of not allowing my ego or emotion or opinion, which can be very strong, to overwhelm what it is I'm saying. I'm not calling someone a name. I'm not trying my very hardest not to make it a personal attack. I don't feel it. Who you are as a person should not have anything to do, for the most part, 99% of the time, with whatever it is we're talking about on the show. I know things. I drink and I know things. Okay, I know lots of things, but I am not a reporter.
But secret keeper,
I am. I'm not a reporter, so I'm not going to hear something and then expose it and use that to paint how I feel about an athlete. So I am very conscious of. I'm not going to make this disrespectful to someone as a person. I'm talking about what you do.
The job
I'm talking
that
about
you
the sport.
perform that particular
game.
And
we all know this. You have to separate art from artists almost all the time in our businesses. It's just not a privilege to say we're only talking about people that always do the right thing. We don't always do the right thing.
Right.
And that's just not the reality of it. So I try to be very conscious of that when I'm giving my opinion.
And Taylor, to the point of you being such a great interviewer, do you think that you're being able to know people outside of work? Like, you're out and you see people, they like you personally as a human being. Yeah. You think that really helps you when you get a chance to sit down and gives you an edge? Because some people are unlikable, but I mean, it's just the truth.
Yeah.
But people actually feel like she's cool also.
Yeah. No, I think that it gives me like a huge, huge advantage. And I remember when I very first started in the business, somebody who I really loved watching, like his old stuff, was Ahmad Rashad, because he made players feel really comfortable and almost like he was one of them. He positioned himself as a peer. And you see male sports journalists do that all the time now. Like, that is baked into the job. It's how they are able to get the access. It's how they are able to, make that athlete feel like there's a relatability between them. And what I noticed was that a lot of the time, women did not do that because of how they felt people would feel about them because of it. And I did not want to be like at a disadvantage because I cared about that thing. It's the same way that sometimes women in business say, okay, well, the men are going to the golf course, but I don't know how to golf, so I'm missing out on the deal. So I said, I'm going to learn how to golf. Because if I don't, I'm going to be left behind. And so I think it's really important that you have very good, strong personal, professional relationships and friendships with these athletes, because it sets the tone for the environment of the interview. It also makes people want to talk to you. I think most importantly, like, people reach out to us and say, this person, X, Y, and Z, wants to go on Taylor's show. And I think that people see me as somebody who wants to understand them as opposed to like judge them or put them in some sort of like bad situation because of the interview. And your reputation and what people think about you and your show and your work is your currency in this business. Like, there's a reason people continue to come on the show. There's a reason the interviews have viral moments. There's a reason that they'll talk about themselves, because I feel very proud to say, like, I have created a space where you feel like you can show up as your full self. And I think the only way you can do that is doing, to your point, like having real connections with people outside of them being on your show. And
it's valuable when people can text you or call you, or you can reach out to them based on something and get some inside information that they're okay with you being able to use. That's just something that I feel like is a blessing to be able to do.
Completely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I know y'all are on the press run, but I do appreciate you guys so much. I'm really excited for the podcast. Like I said, just even watching the trailer that we were able to see is going to be amazing. And I know there's so much that we don't know that we're going to learn. It's not an easy business that both of you guys are in, but it is honestly just such a... It's so amazing to be able to have found somebody that you guys can really lean on each other when you need to and be secret keepers.
No, for sure. It's the best.
The secrets are important. We are going to tell some secrets, but
yeah, we will tell secrets.
It might not be names and dates.
Oh, I cannot wait. Okay.
But we'll tell some secrets.
But no, I think for everybody who also is trying to be in this space, you know, it feels like it's going to have a lot of integrity, which I like because, like you said, everybody is doing this and everybody doesn't have to have the microphone. But it is nice to see people do responsible podcast. And so I'm looking forward to it so much. And I appreciate y'all for coming through. It is Women's Month. So I feel like it's intentional that y'all launched this month.
We are very intentional.
We
people.
are intentional. But no, it
played a role.
is. Yeah.
Okay. Was it hard to get clearance? I don't know how this works, but to even be able to, because I know sometimes, I have an employer too.
For sure.
But to make sure that they're okay with you doing things out, like what was that process?
Yeah, well, I'll speak for me. For me, my employers were incredibly supportive, so I definitely appreciate them for that. But really, I just said to them, I want to do something that is for and about women. Mm-hmm. And I don't always have the space to do that with what we're doing. And this really is, we care about it deeply, but it's also just like a passion project. It's something that was born out of love and friendship and wanting space. And so they were very accepting of that and also just supportive and asking if there was anything they can do to help with it. So it was a good experience on my end.
Yeah, it was the same experience for me. I mean, obviously Fox is a place that really loves personalities and really supports talent in that way and all the different things that we want to do. And their whole mentality on talent is like, the bigger that we are, the bigger the shows are. Good. And that energy definitely works. I mean, if you look at our shows, we're all personalities.
Talky.
Yeah, so they're very supportive. And I've had an amazing time there. Just the opportunities that I've had, obviously being in the opinion space and them understanding that this is a big part of who I am as a talent and what they brought me in to do. So yeah, we're very excited about it. And also, this is really not about sports. The show is not about sports. We obviously have those outlets that we pour into fully when it comes to sports. But this is the conversations that we have at dinner, that we have over martinis, that we have over maybe some other substances. And we really get into it. We have these conversations.
Yep. Feels like a therapy session at times, too, I'm sure.
And that's what Girlfriend Talk really is.
Yeah,
totally.
And when you're doing big things and when you're passionate about life and you're going through your healing journey and you're talking about your experiences, it's not what goes on in the comment section. It's not that, okay, I disagree with you, so don't ever speak to me again. That's not how we talk. And we don't agree on a lot of things, but we always leave the conversation with respect and love. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I really want to bring to the internet because I love talking. Yeah. And I love talking to people I care about. I love learning about them. I love hearing about their stories and what they're passionate about, what they're not passionate about, and why. And those conversations do not happen in short character runs with anonymous people. And that's just that's not how we talk to each other in real life.
Yeah. And also, too, I think this show, when you hear podcasts and things like that, you really think about talking, but it's the same thing I think about interviewing in the podcast space. It's actually a lot more about listening than it is talking. Like, I am hearing what she's saying, I am like synthesizing it in my head, and then I'm wondering like why she did X, Y, and Z, or how it made her feel after, and like what was the takeaway. Like, I enjoy the listening aspect of conversations because I think even the tiny conversations you enter in with people, you should leave changed by it in some way. It could be very tiny, but you should take in information to help influence how you either think about that person or culture or whatever. So I more so like hearing what people have to say in these conversations and responding based on what they say and less me just saying what I think, because I think it should be an exchange of thought and less like me all the time.
What made you decide to start therapy?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I've started therapy a while ago, then stopped and went back, but it was really just rooted in wanting to understand myself better. It wasn't like a one specific occurrence, but I had so many people in my life. Honestly, a lot of athletes would talk to me about how they did therapy, and I was like, I want to try doing this because they all say that they are changed completely by it. And someone once said to me that for them, going into therapy was like taking a break from everything that's hard. And then they realized that so much of life was hard. So when they went into it and could really just talk about everything that happened, you feel a weight lifted off your shoulder. And that's how I feel every single time I end therapy.
What about you, Joy? What made you decide therapy?
I was in and out of therapy since high school because I grew up in an abusive home. But my most recent therapist, I very intentionally found a young Black female therapist.
Same.
And I went on Therapy for Black Girls is where I found her. So if you're looking for a therapist, great resource. But I really was done being in toxic relationships. I was ready to end that chapter of my life, and also just giving toxic people access to me. And I knew that at that point in my life, I did not have the tools. In my brain, I did. I thought I knew I could navigate. You know, we're tough. We're not emotional. We're navigating these very insane spaces. And so we think we can apply that to everything. But I just did not have the tools going from childhood to well into my adulthood to say no to things, because I had an innate fear of losing everything if I was to say no. I don't want this. This doesn't serve me. And so I really wanted to learn how to enforce boundaries. And so I went in. I was like, I already know what's wrong with me. We can start there. We don't have to do a whole life searching. I want to fix this about myself. I want to give myself the tools to have peace in my life, because when you grow up with constant chaos, the chaos is the peace. It's what your nervous system is used to. It seeks it. You're drawn to it. Peace actually feels very weird. It feels unsettling because it's not what you've been put, not what's been put into your DNA. So it was a complete rewiring for me. It was very intense, and I still go, not as often as I was before, but it was very important for me to give myself the tools to be able to move forward in life with the peace that I wanted to achieve, and be able to have relationships that were meaningful and not harmful and not abusive and not unbalanced. And, you know, then it's now just a constant tune-up. I think that we talk about mental health in a very serious way, because it is very serious, but mental health is the same as dental health, is the same as going to check your eyes, is the same as going to the gynecologist, is the same as going to, if you fall down and bust your elbow, going and checking to see if it's broken. We put this emphasis on mental health as if it's something extra. It's your mind and your spirit are in your body. It's just as much a checkup as anything else. If your tooth was hurting, I would say go to the dentist
right away. Too. And by the way, if you wait too long,
you're
going to need a root canal.
Yeah,
right. And if you were like, oh, I don't go to the dentist, like, what are people going to think of me if I go to the dentist? Like, they're going to think that you have bad breath and that you don't have good hygiene. Like, and you're crazy. Like, go to the dentist. But when we talk about mental health, it's like, oh, you have a therapist? Like, what's going on with you? It's a weird separation that we do for lots of, cultural reasons. But I would like us to stop talking about mental health in a way that puts this huge pressure on people that's any different than any other doctor, because your mind literally controls everything that you do in your body.
Yeah.
And we have to treat it as such. So, and the difference is, if you don't fix your mental health, unlike your tooth, you can ruin everyone's life around you. Right? Your tooth is your problem. Your mental health is
but how you
everyone's
treat
problem.
everyone's problem. And to your point, I think that the most difficult part of therapy, and probably just any transformation, is like the unlearning element of it.
Okay.
And I think it's important to say, like, yes, I'm an advocate of therapy now. I think everyone should try it, and I love it. But before it, one of the reasons I didn't do it is because I thought I was a person who didn't need to go to therapy. Like, I understood therapy and supported it, but I was like, oh, that's not something I need to do. My things are figured out. I'm never sad. I never feel nervous or anxious or these things. That's what I thought. But then when I went to therapy and started to actually ask myself questions, I would think, how naive am I to think that I have not been affected by the things that have happened to me? Like, how naive am I to think that, like, things that my parents have done, things that I have gone through in school, things that I have gone through personally, things I have gone through with men, how naive am I to think that I am so special that none of that had any effect on me? In my first therapy session, she just started asking me questions, and I was crying my first therapy session just because I realized that it's something that we all need to do, and it isn't about, like she said, in addition to the things you're taking care of. It is a very necessary part of it. And I don't want people to think that you go to therapy if you feel like something's wrong with you. You're going to therapy a lot of times just because you need to talk.
Right.
And because you need to be asked questions, because you need to figure out what those answers are. So if anyone is like hesitant about therapy or feels like they don't need to go, I just want to say I was that person too. And it is far and away like the best decision I've ever made.
All right. Well, I think that is a great way for us to, honestly, to wrap this up. And I appreciate you both. I'm so excited. Like I said, too personal. I already got a little flavor of what it's going to be like. So thank you guys. Honestly, I appreciate it. And we'll be tuning in March 6th. The first episode comes out, and then every Wednesday.
Yes, that's
Thank
correct.
you so much for having
Thank you,
us.
Angela. You're the best. We appreciate you.
Thank you, ladies.